Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare.
Okay, we are now entering the phase of this teaching in the near end of the text on proper practice. And then we'll be moving on to the foundations of Buddhist practice. Let me pull up the text here. Proper practice. So again, these words generally are His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama. There's also Bhikshuni Tibetan children in here. Sometimes I can tell the difference. Sometimes I don't know. But some good advice, I'm certain. I am concerned these days people rely too much on admiring faith, and even then do not understand or cultivate it properly. Okay, I'm going to go with His Holiness, that sort of voice. Some people have great devotion, but minimal interest in study. Many years ago, I went to Singapore, and the Buddhists there greeted me with so much devotion. Some of them touched my clothes or my body, believing they would receive some blessing. But when I explained the Buddha Dharma, few of them were very interested. I added the very to that. Few of them were interested. I prefer when people are very attentive at teachings and want to learn. They take notes and record the teachings and refer to them later. Buddhism is a path of self-reliance, not one of propagating. Propagating. I want to put a D in there. I want to put a G in there is what I want to do. Propitiating? Yeah. Propagating. Who just say I know somebody out there is going to yell it at me. Never heard that word.
Propitiating. Yeah.
Okay, Buddhism is a path of self-reliance, not one of propitiating. External you're laughing at me.
No, I'm not laughing at you.
It's with me.
I'm just laughing.
Propitiating an external god or deity to give us material goods, reputation, or spiritual realizations. Tibetans are often, keep line AdWords, focus, John. I should take a mindfulness course here. Let me get it clear. Propitiating threw me out. Tibetans often have statues or protector deities on their altars and store their valuables in cabinets below. I joke with them that it appears that they pray to the protectors on top of the cabinet to protect the worldly goods inside the cabinet. This is not a Buddhist practice. Expecting an external holy being to remove our suffering and make us a Buddha is a wrong view. Improper understanding of prayers in Tibetan liturgy can lead to this idea. We request to the assembly of holy beings, please grant me blessings and generate compassion. This is a skillful way of focusing our energy and identifying what is important. However, we cannot simply make offerings to the gurus and deities, request them to grant us blessings, and then sit back and have a cup of tea, thinking they'll do it all, they will do all the work. The Buddhas have such great compassion for sentient beings that if they could have eliminated our suffering and given us realizations, they would have done so by now. I wouldn't have even needed to make an offering. However, our progress along the path depends on our creating the appropriate causes. Our own effort is crucial. Just as another person cannot sleep for us so that we'll feel well rested, No one else can transform our mind for us. Nevertheless, innumerable holy beings are trying to assist and guide us on the path. But do we pay attention to their guidance, the teachings they give us? If we call ourselves Buddhists and seek protection from suffering, we should rely on the Buddhist teachings. The principal way the Buddha protects us is by teaching us the Dharma. By putting the teachings into practice, we abandon harmful actions, purify those done in the past, and engage in constructive actions. This is the best protection. So let's just highlight that little piece there. We put the teachings into practice, we abandon harmful actions, purify those done in the past, and engage in constructive actions. Come on now. Work with me. This is the best protection. We'll come back to that. This is the best protection. If we do not observe the law of karma and its effects, we may make extensive offerings to protectors, chant innumerable pujas in deep melodic voices, beat drums, ring bells, but misery will still befall us because we have created the cause for it. On the other hand, if we act ethically, even if others try to harm us, they will not succeed because we have removed the causes that make us vulnerable to it. So yeah, let's just pause there for a moment. There's a bit to chew into. We just had the monks here. It's great having them here. We did a salmon, did blessings for the whole community. People turn out, show up for that. And we're sitting here in the Dharma Center. We got 5 people. Have blessings and empowerments, rooms back. And then study, practice, meditate. Room thins out a little bit. And so this is something that is common, and he's highlighting some of the Tibetan culture, actually even highlighted in Singapore as well. Great devotion. It's also very common here as well. There's lots of types of events that people can do for spiritual cleansing, sound baths, different types of things that feel good, they're nourishing, and then we go back out into the world. And one of the analogies, I don't remember which teacher, but it was like we get this radiant cleansing in this bath, and then we go jump in a mud puddle. Then we're like, wow, when's that next retreat? Wow, when's that next blessing? And we get all cleansed, and we go out and play in the mud. And that's not going to be very effective. Blessings, and he's going to go into that here in a moment, are skillful methods, as he pointed out, to channel and focus. But really what it's doing is unlocking that which is already within. And the way that we get to that which is within, the way we have access, is we remove the karma and the klesha that's obscuring it. And that's through virtuous action, constructive actions. It's through purifying past actions. And it's by avoiding engaging in non-virtue. So act ethically, avoid the non-virtue. Apply these teachings as best we can. Purify negativities. Act constructively. Create the causes for well-being. Avoid the causes for suffering. And that's all on our side. Now, all the other things like blessings and purifications and empowerments, those are all very skillful methods that can be utilized to give us a boost. And if we're not doing anything with it, it's like pouring water on a rock. Not going to be very helpful. So understanding Buddhist practices and applying Buddhist practices, that's a different thing. Doing rituals or engaging in rituals that support a practice can be very different. Devotional practices, very helpful, but again, can be of minimal impact. It depends on what we're seeking. So I think a lot of people will get confused, and that's how he started this whole section, was he's concerned that a lot of people rely on these acts or rituals or purifications or blessings and devotion, but not actually do the inner work to remove the causes of that types of suffering or the causes for well-being, which ultimately is going to have wisdom involved and compassion. So just pause there, see if anyone has any thoughts or questions. He's going to, I guess, start to explain what a blessing is. Okay, let's take a peek. The Tibetan word, the Tibetan word binyabs, which I'm unfamiliar with that phonetics, is translated as blessing. I'm used to like Ravne, or inspiration. Literally means to transform into magnificence. Blessing or inspiration literally means to transform into magnificence, or to transform by magnificence. We receive a blessing not through an external power causing us to have an extraordinary experience, but through a combination of the holy being's teachings and our practice. The real sense of blessing is a transformation of mind from an unwholesome state to a wholesome one. Indications that our mind has been inspired and transformed are that our fear lessens, our temper calms, and our tolerance and respect for others increase. Those are just right there. Here's the check marks. There's this happening, right? Our fear lessens, our temper calms, and our tolerance and respect for others increase. It's working. As a sincere Buddhist, we do not seek magnificent mystical experiences to boast about to our friends, but instead try to become a better human being. If you do that, you will automatically benefit others and improve the world. And so, it's not so, what's the word I'd be looking for? Glamorous. Jetsuma Tenzin Palmo going through these lists of cities, of these great cities, and I don't remember one of the sort of great cities is the fact that that you are tamed of unethical behavior. Like that's like one of the greatest, it's not that you can float in the air. It's not that this, it's that you're free of these afflictive, unethical behaviors. They're just not there. Like that is a great city. And so a lot of times, people will, be describing, even in meditation, we have a particular experience of this or that. And it's quite special or wonderful, feels great. And then, then it's Tuesday. And then I'm trying to get that feeling again. All of these things are geared towards what was just stated, and an even shorter measurement tool is how kind are you? Yeah, that's when you know this stuff works. How kind are you? Then we know we're on the right track. So His Holiness is making a point that now he's not saying, don't get a blessing. He's saying there's a thing that happens. So if we're with, for example, I was here and with the Jainong, the blessing of the Buddha of Compassion that was offered here by this wonderful, wonderful Geshe. And wow, I was open to it. I felt like it just landed. It was a nice boost. I've had this empowerment for many years. I've had Jainongs. So just in case you're unfamiliar, empowerment blessings, there's these two. One's called a Wong. It's a full empowerment. It takes a long time. It's a whole process and vows and commitments and mandalas and then you get this full empowerment. And then a Jainong is sort of a booster blessing. It's a short. They can do it in an hour and a half or so, and it's a nice little and a connection, with that, with the qualities of, for example, compassion, the Buddha of Compassion. And so what's happening there is the Geshe giving me something that I didn't have? Or is there something that is dependently arising from his side, from my openness, from my previous practice, from my conditions, from his side, from his efforts, from that lung of transmission? Lung is a transmission from centuries, from lamas and practices and the monasteries and the centuries of practice to the blessings that have ripened within his mind, and the whole collection of not just the 1,500 monks at the monastery, but all those before him that are giving rise to the presence of him in this moment, and the presence of me in this moment was my previous conditioning, and having been a monk there as well, and the previous empowerments or teachings and things that I've received coming together in a moment in a moment of magnificence or something of effort to ripen within me again, a reminder of what's already there. And so I'm having a different experience in the blessing ceremony than someone next to me. Right? They might be tearful and just overcome, or it might be like water on a rock, like what is all this chanting stuff, right? So it's not this person giving someone. It's always, everything that we're doing is always an interdependent experience that arises, based on people we've never met who lived centuries ago that have created conditions for experiences we are having now. And sometimes that doesn't seem very tangible. And so I have this one tangible thing that helps me. Some people are familiar with Alcoholics Anonymous. It's a 12-step program, and it's changed millions of lives. It's been around 1935, and millions of people's lives have changed. People have heard 12 steps. They apply it to gambling. They apply it to sex. They apply it to all types of codependency issues. I mean, it's just been this thing. It's all around the world. Think about how many lives it's touched. And it started because one guy made a phone call in a hotel lobby to another guy. So one phone call, two people, ripples how many people it touched. So then you start thinking about how many people at meetings, and then there's books, and then there's offshoots, and then there's, and then you start to understand, well, let's go back to the Buddha Dharma. And you think about a teacher, and you think about those qualities, and you think about the energy of that and how it multiplies. and all those who have practiced and those who spent 20 years in a cave and all those lessons and all those devotional practices and all of that is ripening within this geshe who's in front of me. And I'm here because of that too. There's a transformation of magnificence that if I can see all that, or I can just see some Tibetan guy up there, and think, I have some devotion. But what if I recognize it's really not about him at all? It's not about him at all. He's just a representation of this collective unfolding, and from his side, visualizing himself as the Buddha of compassion, to allow me to be open to that. So there's so much going on there. So it's not just about him, it's not just about me. I mean, there's a lot happening, but with that focused, repetitive ritual transmission that has gone through centuries, there's just a force of collective merit and energy that is manifesting. So, let me mute my speaker there. Plug in my computer. So let me pause there and see if anyone has any thoughts or questions. And then,
John, I have a question about transmission. Is this
really,
transmission?
all that and nothing, huh?
Oh, you can't hear me.
So we are capable then of being in these moments and these things that then bless, inspire, mind transforms. But if we don't sustain it, it's Tuesday. By the way, that's garbage day at Carbondale. And I'm taking out the garbage, and every other week the recyclables.
John, Rita had a question.
But if I
John?
get those moments, get
Oh,
those
dear.
blessings open, and then sustain those with, constructive action, ethical behavior, compassion, bodhicitta, these things, that's where we're into that constructive action, compassionate bodhicitta activities based in wisdom, avoiding non-virtue, cultivating virtue, purifying. Well, now the windshield that's obscuring my vision is getting cleared away. Karma and klesha is getting cleared away. And then, I'm more often capable of living in that interdependence at all times. Instead of just seeing people, places, and things, really aware that this is a very dependently arising moment. And it's offering opportunities. And so that capacity develops over time.
There was a chat that said people are asking questions, but we cannot hear them.
Oh, because I muted because of the messaging. One of these days, this is going to work smooth. Going to happen. I'm going to unmute, and then go ahead and I also saw Roxana had her hand up. Now we could hear you if you unmute and talk.
I was just going to tell you that Rita had a question for you.
Thank you, Roxana.
You're welcome.
I wanted to ask about transmissions. I've heard the phrase and I have an assumption about what it means, but I don't know what it means. And is this a transmission? Is that what's happening right now? Are we having a transmission? Or my assumption was that a transmission is some sort of, not that this isn't holy, but some more holy thing where it's one-on-one and it's something intangible that's given maybe even without words.
The transmission technically, and we're talking about often called lung transmission, is commonly done in Tibetan, most commonly as a teaching on a text. So to receive the lung, the transmission of a Buddhist text, that teacher will read the whole text you word for word, which he's received from his teacher, which he received from his teacher, and so forth. So you will have received unbroken in lineage, the recitation verbally of that text, unbroken in lineage. And it doesn't have to be one-on-one. I mean, I've attended these where, we're a whole group, and that teacher will recite the whole text, and then he'll teach the text. So you get the lung, the transmission, and then teaches the text. So commonly, you would receive a transmission of a specific text. They just read the whole thing first, and then they teach it. So that would be the common transmission. So you're receiving the holy words in an unbroken lineage, all the way down through time to you, and then be taught that specific thing, that teaching. There's some transmissions, also where they receive within sort of blessings and empowerments, because that text they've received that again unbroken. But that's technically what it would be in common application to Tibetan Buddhism.
Thanks.
So I did not read this whole book to you first. We have read a lot, but I don't have an unbroken lineage of this. This is a commentary that has been developed. We're kind of actually at an early part of what would be a transmission, because His Holiness and Tibetan children and all the geshes, where they all got together to decide how to bring about a text that could speak to a Western mind about the long rim. So it's been, we've read a good part of it. I'll skip here and there, but we're in an early part of the lineage. You'll have to read it to others when you're done, okay? Let's take a peek here. Yeah, okay, so the next section is going to be purification and collection of merit. But just, double check. So if we understand, His Holiness is not saying, don't go get blessings. He's saying, use the blessings wisely, right? One of the, I asked this very question of Venerable Tenzin Darshi about blessings. And, I want to pin him down. I'm like checking him out, I'm not sure it was the first teaching I've ever received from Tenzin Darshi. He's this incredible Lama who speaks 9 languages. He's young, fluent in English, went to a Jesuit university here, double major, double minored. He'll be teaching here October 14th. We're going to have him here. And, so I was always taught, you check out teachers, you do this. Like, who am I to check it? It's pretty funny. Hey, and I asked him about these, about blessings. What really happened, is that blessing given to someone and these things. And he was so skillful. He was like, well, here's what I observed by His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama. Like, he went right to Dalai Lama. He's not like giving it. He goes, and what I observed was His Holiness was coming out of a teaching, out of an empowerment or teaching. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it was just a teaching. And all the people are lined up, to see him. They're hoping to get to touch him. And, and his people are always trying to keep him a little separate, but, he makes a beeline to, this woman who's got this mala. And the woman asks him, can you bless this mala? And His Holiness said, of course, I'd be happy to. And he does it, and he says, but the real blessing's in the teaching. Answer them all back. And that was Venerable Tenzin Darshi's answer to that. And that's what His Holiness is saying here as well. Yeah, I'll give you a blessing. But the real blessing's in the teaching. So this blessing may inspire you, hopefully it'll inspire you to engage in practice, not just be protective. Yeah, so we will have Venerable Tenzin Darcy October 14th. I requested he teach on the three principal aspects of the path, which is the heart of all the Lam Rim, renunciation, bodhicitta, and wisdom. It's the shortest Lam Rim text there is. It's 14 verses, packs a punch. So, so if you can make it for that, that'd be wonderful.
John, I was wondering if I could ask for your thoughts or some clarification. I recently read a book by a Buddhist teacher who was also Jewish. And in the book, she explored a little bit around her experience of the difference between praying and mindfulness or meditative practices. And something that I found helpful was her putting into words that sense that some forms of prayer, perhaps in different religions, there's a sense of a self talking to another, just sort of the experience, the inner experiences of a dialogue directed. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was interesting because some of what Buddhism also includes is very verbal, very repeated practices of verbal, and yet on the other hand, there is that element of experiential engagement in the moment of saying those words, of mind, body, and speech being in a unique moment of experience. And so I was interested how that would fit with some of what we're talking about with blessings or rituals, sort of how that, if it is distinct, if there is an aspect of mindfulness of experience that comes into even participating in rituals or some of the regular practices like establishing refuge or dedicating the practice at the end.
Not sure I'm seeing the question in there. So mindfulness experience, anything that you're being mindful of, you're going to have a mindful experience. So I'm not sure I'm gathering exactly. So if you're doing
I guess I just want to, I suppose this is me asking if I'm doing it right, but like just in understanding how blessings or rituals or some of the regular practices are an important component of practice with a capital P. Mm-hmm. Your inner engagement is not passive, obviously, mm-hmm. but on what level of daily, so like, is it okay to be thinking about your personal daily life while you are establishing refuge, kind of in a more personal sense? I'm like, even as I'm saying that, I'm realizing that I need to create these, some of what this is Buddha would say, Buddha can't give you an answer to this. This is where you find it in you. So I guess maybe I'll leave it at that. If I'm not putting it into words, I am perhaps asking for something that,
okay, but maybe this response would be helpful, which is that, if I'm doing water bowls, wow, think about what's being offered and all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and all this, the path of awakening that's being laid out. And if I'm pouring water, there's one aspect where you think about the 10 qualities of water. And I tend to think about that water is life, that this water has been in the bodies of others. We're over 70% water. There's the clouds and water is life. This same water I'm pouring could have been in the bodies of countless others and given life to countless others. And I'm, we do a consecration of this, thinking of all that has come into being and being offered. And then Sam actually touched up the water bowls here. But as you pour it and you're offering and you're really bringing your mind to offering this life and the gratitude and the devotion as all those who've gone before us have provided for us. I mean, just doing water bowls just so with the right level and in just this, nice pristine way, your mind's altered. By the time you're done, you've set the altar, you brought that to mind. The preliminary practices that we do each morning, cleaning the altar, making offerings, and taking refuge. By the time you get to a meditation, your mind has already transformed. And so that type of ritual and practice can be incredibly powerful. And it could also be very rote. Gotta do the water bowls, man. Get them up. And and then it could be, as His Holiness was saying, all these offerings for the protector deities to protect your wealth, protect what's in the cabinet, and then that's, probably not going to be that helpful. But for the day-to-day, can I engage in prayer and practices that with good aspiration that, that I have conditions to be free of suffering, that I have more peace and capacity to help others, which is a little more personal. Totally good. Good aspirations. May we have long life. May we be healthy. May we be well. Now we're in loving kindness. Very valid motivation, very valid. If we're coming from a place that we use these qualities to be a benefit and to grow instead of, to get a new Maserati. Right. So in that way, it's not selfish at all. And I think that's where Westerners get stuck. With loving kindness, we're aspiring for good health and for well-being. Think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I'm not going to be able to help anybody if my basic needs aren't met, if I'm not healthy, if I'm not well. And so, again, having aspirations like that are good. They have protective amulets. I've got one. I got a protective amulet right here, and a few blessing cords. And I know what goes into making all these and all the rituals and all the monks and all the prayers and all that, but it reminds me, what my primary purpose is. So hopefully some of that's helpful. When I think of prayer in general, I think of prayer as anything that is bringing virtue to the mind. If I'm doing prayers for the benefit of all beings, my mind is protected. It's in virtue. It's not in anger, resentment, or rumination. And so, loving kindness, prayer. If I'm saying mantras or my sadhana practices, my mind's in a virtuous state. And yes, as you talked about, sort of, there's a dialogue, right? There's words. I'm visualizing my teachers with me. I don't feel separate from, and I feel like they're right here with me. And it's, for me, very transformative. Having said that, there's some Buddhist traditions where there's no prayer. So like in Zen, no prayer. Who are you praying to? Who are you praying to? And so that's not a part of their practices. So that's, again, within Buddhism and other religions, prayer can be this very rich, nurturing thing. It could be a rote thing, but it's how we engage with it that's going to make the difference. So hopefully that was helpful. Roxanne, I got your hand up.
This reminded me of something that's in the booklet that Venerable Tenzin Priyadarshi distributed one time. And I think about it, I do it on a regular basis. It says, grant your blessings so that my mind may be one with the Dharma. Grant your blessings so that my Dharma practice may progress along the path. And I ask myself, okay, who am I asking to grant their blessings? And then I'm thinking all of the awakened ones, all of the merit field, I'm not praying to one being like that. And so when I do that, I feel like I've got support from the awakened ones. And one time, there's a labyrinth that is near where I live, and so I got into a habit of doing the labyrinth and doing Om Mani Padme Hum, and I was doing it, and I felt as though there were beings there supporting me, walking with me. It was very cool. But so, like, when I think about praying in this fashion, I don't think that I'm praying to one being in the sky. I just like praying to the entire merit field.
Mhm.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah, and when you're developing relationships with others,
Yeah.
right? I mean, there's other beings, so why not have relationships? And and from a bodhisattva perspective, they're always here for that, but they're here in support for us to recognize our own Buddha nature. And so it's in this dialogue and relationship where they're really not granting anything that isn't already within, but those relationships and inspiration allow us access. And so, as we do those things, we're in a different mindset than we would otherwise be in. And so that's
It felt really cool to feel supported in that way.
Yeah, good. And for those of you online, the merit field is that picture right there. And all the Buddha's bodhisattvas, symbolic representation of all the lineages. Yeah, and I always bring to mind my teachers, and there's a sort of process to bring your refuge field and the teachers and people have taught you and certain awakenings, all that. Good people to hang out with. Good beings, technically good beings to hang out with. All right, any other thoughts here? Next week we can get into purification. I know we've gone over that a time or two, I think even in this text.
John, there's something I've been thinking about, and you've talked about it a little bit, and I heard a talk from Tibetan children recently that kind of mentioned it too, and that's by doing some of these prayers for other individuals or aspirations, for instance, like particularly I'm thinking about the 4 immeasurables where we, ask that we cause people to, be in these states of these immeasurable states. Both you and Tibetan children have said that there's some connection between our karmas, and that because I'd kind of like, it came to me at one point, I'd kind of throw up my hands like I can't, I can't change somebody's karma for them. And I think also, I'm not sure if I have the name right, but is it David Gonzalez?
Yeah.
That his teacher did the practices for him that changed his karma.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you can comment a little bit about how our actions can potentially change other people's karma. And I know you and I had sort of, touched on that a little bit in one respect when we had a conversation about, expecting people to be different. It just kind of seems like this juxtaposition or this sort of Venn diagram where a lot of things are sort of, overlapping on each other, and I'm trying to sort them out, I guess, about how we affect other people's karma or what we can.
Okay. No, and you're nailing it right there, the overlapping part. So yeah, we do have some personal individualized karma stream of consciousness, our karmic imprints that are, you know, uniquely as part of us. But there's nothing about you that is all about you. You know, if you think about, you know, as I've said many times, not even your body, you didn't create your body, right? Your parents and then their parents, and like everything about us and every aspect of our life is arises in dependence upon a multitude of conditions and things. So whether I'm healthy or unhealthy, yeah, I've got some karma in there, but it also has a lot to do with the environment I'm living in, the healthcare I may or may not have, the cherry pie I may or may not have had, you know, these other conditions that support and give rise to our experience. So when you're having, you know, for example, like I mentioned, someone who made a phone call in 1935 changed my life, who I've never met, right? Well, they've influenced my whole experience, right? I'm a person in recovery. I got to go to meetings and use, you know, some of what they created to find recovery. So they've influenced my life immeasurably. Never met them. Likewise, when people are doing practices focusing on a particular person's karmic imprint, just in general, think about interdependence. And I've mentioned this again when, you know, we see an animal on the side of the road that's dead. You know, the monks and me, I still have this habit. I just start saying prayers, you know, for that animal. And how could that not affect that animal? I was just driving a car, not thinking about kind thoughts or that animal or anything. See a dead animal. Now that animal triggered within me a virtuous mind to say prayers for all sentient beings and for that specific animal. Now, because of that sight, I'm now engaged in virtue. Of course, that animal is going to have some, there's cause and effect here, right? So that would be a secondary cause, not a primary, but it's linked. And so those things are influenced. So when you think about like this great Lama who went and did all those pujas, I mean, selflessly traveled from Bangalore and sat in front of Trujung Rinpoche's stupa day in and night and did all those things for David's, you know, dedicating. Well, he's not necessarily changing David's personal karma, but he's changing the conditions that give rise to his life, his mission, the purpose, you know, because he felt it was important that David remain so that he could translate these teachings for others. And so these are conditions. And when he's doing those pujas, it's not just him, right? It's all the lineage and, you know, and all that ritual and all that has built up that is creating conditions for this person environment to be healthy enough to once again be able to translate all the texts that he did. So it's, you know, it's not just one-on-one. And so I can have karmic potentials that don't ripen because there's no conditions for them to ripen. I can have seeds of anger, but if I'm sitting in a jacuzzi with my, you know, morning cup of coffee, it's pretty, you know, anger's probably not going to arise. So I can have all these potentials, but those potentials need the conditions to ripen. So David, in certain conditions, other things don't ripen, and, you know, different conditions change. Does that make sense?
It's going to require more investigation on my part. I think it's very, very intriguing, and I can't say I ever remember hearing about that level of karmic interaction maybe until fairly recently. So it's something that's just going to require more investigation.
Yeah, you know, there's the karma, the collective karma we have right now. It's all of us have a karma. There's the karma of Carbondale. There's the karma of you're out in Dillon. You know, there's all these karma. Karma is the most. They say it's harder to have a direct realization of karma than it is a direct realization of emptiness. It's just multifaceted. But because you mentioned this, I'm going to pop it up. So in the four measurables, we will say things like, how wonderful it'd be if all sentient beings were free from suffering and its causes. May they be free. I shall cause them to be free. And that might be what you're referencing there, like I shall cause them to be free. What that's saying is I'm taking personal responsibility to work towards that end. Doesn't mean you're going to make them all free. It means I'm taking this on as my motivation to do so. And it's saying, well, okay, if I'm going to do that, then I need to be free of that, right? I need to free myself so I can help in those ways. And so it's a motivation. There's a great benefit in having a motivation, even beyond anything you can actually do. There's, three types of bodhicitta, and one type is that you're not going to be completely enlightened until everyone else is. That you're going to stay here and you're going to get everyone else in line, and then you'll be, full Buddhahood. Now that's technically, not possible. So that's really not possible. But I'll tell you what, the mind that is. So even that's a very skillful thing. So they talk about, the first level is to get enlightened and then help everyone, which might be a little more doable, which is a great mind to have. But so even what we're talking about are skillful methods and attitudes that get us somewhere. All of these are cutting through self-grasping. So the more that we can take responsibility to be a benefit for others, you're cutting through that self-grasping. It's just skillful method. So anyway, noodle that for a while. And when you get it figured out, let me know. All right. Let's wrap up here. And so taking just a moment to call to mind all of those who have come before, all the conditions that have been created so that we can be here in this moment to receive these teachings on liberation and freedom and how to be a benefit to all sentient beings. And let us collectively dedicate all of this merit, ours and those countless others, for the benefit of all sentient beings and for our own continued spiritual growth. Let us dedicate. By this merit, may I soon attain the enlightened state of Guru Buddha, that I may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their sufferings. May the precious Bodhi mind not yet born arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore.
Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha.